Okay, tēnā koutou e tiwi. Nau mahara mai ki tēnei hōtoka, ko Haka and the Matrix. I'm here with Bruce, Mr. Bruce Simpson. And I'll be introducing Bruce in a minute, but just prior to that, my name is Carl Burrows, and I'm from Haka Works, and as I said before, this is Haka and the Matrix. Why Haka and the Matrix? Well, Haka is what we do, it's what we love, it's about our culture. It's also the knowledge that has been passed down to us from our ancestors. And the Matrix, well, you'll remember the movie, and Nemo was going through, is it Nemo?
Yeah.
No, it's Nemo. It's not Nemo, it's Neo.
Neo,
yeah. And he was going through the various worlds that he inhabited, and just to find his own purpose in life. And that's what we're doing. And we're lucky as Māori to have these tools that have been passed down to us from our ancestors, and apply that to our journey in life to understand our own purpose as Māori, as individuals, and also as communities. So we want to share that. That's what we do. But also in doing that, we just want to really be sure that we're doing it in a way that's respectful to our culture, and also ensures that the mana that goes with that knowledge stays intact as we move forward. So today, as I said, I've got Mr. Bruce Simpson with us, all the way from London. Really pleased to have you on here, Bruce. Before I get in, just talk, I'm just going to do a quick mihi mihi and a karakia in Māori language. And it's just like about a minute, but all we're doing is acknowledging you all, acknowledging why we're here, and also our ancestors as well. And also we'll go into a karakia, which just gets us in the right frame of mind to achieve what we want to achieve tonight. So tēnā koutou katoa, e wakaronga mai ki au e tēnei wā, kia māua, ko Bruce, he uri tēnei no taranaki, no Wanganui anō uki, no te ao Pākehā anō uki tēnei, e mihi ana ki a koutou. Tēnā koutou e rungi te kaupapa te wā, me ki ko ngā taonga tuku iho, no ngā mātua tupuna, me ki ka huri ki a rātou, ngā mate o te wā, ngā mate e takoto ki runga ngā marae o te kāinga, takoto, mate o tēnei wiki, tēnei marama, tēnei tau, haere atu rā, rātou ki a rātou, tātou ki a tātou, a tēnā koutou. Ka huri o ki te karakia, ko rangi ko papa ka putoka rongo ko tā ane mahuta ko tangaro tumatu inga humi e tiki ko tā whiri mate. Tukuna tarangi ki runga ko papa ki raro. Ka puta ko te ira tangata ki te oia o ki te ao marama tihai Māori ora. Ka huri ki a koe e hoa, i te tungane, i te tuakana, i te rangatira, nei mahara mai, me ki ko he uri koe no tira iwi rongonui ko Ngati Raukawa, nei mahara mai Ngati Toa no hoki Ngati Kahungunu, ia te kōrero, nei mahara mai ki tēnei hōtaka, kia ora Bruce.
Nā mihi kia koe kas, mihi nui kia koutou ngā iwi o te ao hoki. Nice to see you.
Kia ora. Also, really pleased to have you on. It's like we've been on this similar journey together, so just to have the chance to share your story with the world is just a really exciting opportunity for me. So really pleased to have you, Bruce. So no mahara mai, and let's just start off. Just give us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and also I just want to know about you growing up in this famous place called Bulls.
Well, called Bruce Simpson Toku Ingoa, and lucky enough, Bulls is my close marae to us, but I was actually brought up in Awapuni in Palmerston North all my life, right up until I left there to come here to the UK. It was pretty cool. We lived in what was called a pepper pot community, where we had Maori families who lived in amongst Pākehā families in areas in our suburbs, sort of thing. And so it was quite strange to a lot of my mates. I used to get a bit of a hard time when all the Maori people in our suburb we'd always refer to as uncle or auntie, and my mates used to wonder why, or my Pākehā mates wonder why I didn't use that title for their parents and those things. But it was a learning curve for them, and it was a great place to be brought up. I really enjoyed it. My mother was well known. My family was well known in the town for some mostly good things, some not so good. But that's the way it flows in big families. But in general, I had a really good upbringing, very close to my taha Maori in regards. But mother wasn't a Maori speaker. But
so what's your, sorry, just coming in here, Bruce. What's your connection to bulls and your iwi around that area?
Oh, my mum was born at her marae out of bulls. So Pariwahawaha is my marae and bulls. So yeah, that was the one that we were mostly at. My grandmother's from Kawiu in Levin. She's a Muopoko, full-blooded Maori. My mum and most of my mum and her uncles and aunties, all Ngati Raukawa and Ngati Toa as well. We come in through. Pariwahawaha is the sister of Pari Kōwhatu, who's the mother of Te Rauparaha, and that's a strong connection to that side as well. But I come into Ngati Toa through my Ngati side, through Puhi Wahine Ngati and her husband, who was a German. So we've always been brought up with that close connection. But yeah, Bulls is pretty much the place that that we were always at, and I was lucky enough to be brought up around, and it's a beautiful place for me, I must say.
Okay. Hey, just to everybody out there, thank you for sending us some mihi. So we've got a whole bunch of people saying hello. So we've got PJ saying Deutz. Hi, Jerry over here in London. Kia ora korua. Kia ora, Bruce from Andrew. We've got Mihirangi Hollings. Kei te mihi atu ki a koe Mihirangi. Carl Bates. Kia ora, Carl. And Dino's from Toronto. Have you met Dino? Over in Toronto there, and then Emma from Bedford here in the UK. So if anybody has any questions for Bruce, just you can send them on. You can or any comments you want to make, if you want to say where you are, where you're listening from, just drop those into the chat, and we'll see them, and we can ask Bruce if any questions come up. So just about in terms of being Maori, what are some of the values? I think you've really talked about them in terms of the closeness of family and whānau, and also the connectedness that you have to your ancestors. Is there anything else that stood out for you growing up Maori?
Certainly, I learnt a lot about it coming here to the UK, and you actually think that everybody's brought up like you. And then when I came here, I realised, that the population of Māori in Palmerston North is only about, I'd say 15%, probably 17% at the highest sort of thing. So it's totally different than people who are brought up in, say, Gisborne or Kaitaia, or even much bigger Māori areas that are in New Zealand. So you really do get a sense. The Māoris in Palmerston North were really quite cohesive. They would all get along, because you are in a lower percentage. And then when I find out that there are towns who have let's say an 80% Māori population there, they could quite often have opposing almost sides, or certainly in the gang membership and that sort of way. So being brought up in Palmerston, it was really good. We've never had a problem, never had any of those things. But my Māori side really came out when I came to the UK, and it took a little while for that to sort of surface as well. Yeah,
I'm really interested in that journey too, Bruce, because I've been a part of that with you as well. So how were race relations in those towns when you were growing up, in terms of, because I know you have a Pākehā father as well, like me. We're both we're Pākehā fathers and Māori mothers. So how was that for you?
It was really good, but I suppose you just didn't notice the discrepancies. I mean, it was just something that it was just the way it was. And of course, we'd call each other pejorative names. In those days, every marae had a Uncle Blackie and a Uncle Nignigs and those sort of things. And those were names that were just around at the time. This is a much more enlightened time now, but in those days, you just took it on the chin. There were a lot more Māori jokes, and as a Māori, you had to make sure that you're on top of your game. I've never ever liked it when our own people have dumbed down. Much the same as my Irish father, who was pretty bright and didn't really like that sort of generalisation of Irish people are thick and couldn't do things. Well, for me as a Māori, and certainly in our family, my parents made sure that we would never dumb down to any audience, and so we were never really allowed to play that sort of, I don't know how to say it, but in that way we had to always put our best foot forward whenever we were around people. And I didn't really notice it until I came here, until I came to the UK. But and then I did notice it, you know.
So just tell us about why did you come overseas, and tell us a little bit about that, because I know you were in the US for a while.
Oh yeah, I didn't. The US came a little bit later, much after just riding around. But I suppose from a really young age, I've had my British passport from the age of 16. I think I applied for it and I got it pretty quick. And ever since then, I knew that I'd be coming overseas at some time. I have a real love for history. The particle accelerator that's in Switzerland, I'd read about that and it'd been built, and I sort of liked being around. Everything in Europe seemed to be happening. It was that way for many others. It wasn't a work thing. I had a really good job on the railways. I was really, really well paid for a teenager. But it was, I just knew I was going to come. Plus, I wanted to see my father's family too. You know, there's a whole side of your family you don't know. You don't know. All my family in New Zealand, all my family are all Maori, apart from my uncles and aunties, my mum's family who married Pākehā New Zealanders. But outside of that, you know, we'd always known about our Irish side. We'd talked to them fleetingly on phones. You really didn't phone in those days. Most things were by correspondence. But I knew I had them and I wanted to see them. Plus, I sort of like being a fish out of water. I like being the person who's different in the crowd. Sorry, it's probably not a humble thing, but I like that.
No, well, I think similar to me. Well, it wasn't the reason I came over, you know, in terms of my English side or my Belgium side. It's more that I knew that my family was from over there and I wanted to come and explore and know who they are. But actually the whole journey of coming over and you know, connecting with my Pākehā relations, my non-Māori relations, was a way to grow into myself as well. You know, just as growing into myself as Māori was important, coming over here to grow into myself as European was equally important to me, and just made me a more fuller person, I suppose.
It was a real cultural shock though, for them too. You know, come on, you know, a guy like me turns up a long hair and on a bike, and you know, I ate much more than anyone there. You know, because we were just used to, you know, when I was young, Māori guys would eat 10 eggs a day or something like that, and that wasn't what they did. Eat a whole chicken in front of them. There was that sort of stuff, you know? And you know, it was just a real cultural difference. But in spite of it, you know, I had a real connection. You know, I'm tangata whenua here in the UK, and in particular in Northern Ireland. And when I go there, I always have a real sense of that. I performed over in Belfast recently, and after the gig, I was really quite emotional after that one, sort of, because those are my father's people, and I'm there to not only educate them but to entertain them, and they were really happy with the job, and so it meant a lot to me.
Yeah, because we often talk about this in relation to our Māori side, but, you know, I mean, it's the same idea, isn't it? It has the same applicability in terms of our connection to our ancestors and how they make us feel, in connection to the land as well. And I know particularly in Ireland, when you go over there and people, I mean, it wasn't so long ago people were living in clans or, you know, small tribes and small communities, and they're all related. And even now you go to some of those places and you'll see nearly every business has got the same name. You know, it might be O'Connor, Butchers O'Connor.
The small towns. Yes.
O'Connor funeral homes, you know. So it's certainly, those same ideas apply, whakapapa. Just like Jerome said, kia ora, Jerome.
Yeah.
You know,
in spite of their diaspora that went to America due to the famine, they have a huge amount of ahika there, and they did not move around much. There was very little places to go. So it was, you know, very feudal in some ways, that, you know, in a feudalistic sort of scenario, you do not move out of your priory. You do not move out of your place. There's nowhere to go apart from where you are. So it was a brave move to go to America, in spite of it. But yes, I quite often get asked by the Irish press, how do you like Ireland? And I sort of say to them jokingly that the Irish are just like very pale Maoris, and Maoris are just like very dark Irish people. And so there's humour. Everybody sings. There's music everywhere. Guitarists everywhere. Everybody, you know, are very open, very raw, but very real. and I feel very at home there.
Yeah. So, hey, Bruce, you seem to be growing taller because the screen is now just cutting off the top of your head. So,
there's not much on the top of my head, so
trying to hide it. Yeah. So, just on that note, I remember reading something as a historical account of a dispute in Ngati Maori, which ended up in a bit of a brawl. And one of the comments from the English was the Maori seem to be one of the most Hibernian people. And I was going, "What's Hibernian?" And I looked it up, and it was the Irish, So
yeah,
very similar. Like, I suppose just more free with our emotions and connection to each other. Yeah.
Yes, but very bright, very very entrepreneurial, very bright. It was a natural sense, and I must say that my father seemed to fit in amongst my mother's people out there in Bulls. It was always he always felt welcome. He had a real love for my mother's people and they for him, including my mum, sort of things. I mean, there are times when he probably told jokes he shouldn't have, but when it comes with an Irish accent, everybody tends to forgive it. So,
hey, so tell us what you did in London, and want to connect us to your time in Ngati Ranana.
Oh well, I come from a line of a family who's very much around the bike community in New Zealand. So, I was all my mates and we were brought up in that sort of environment. So the thought of coming over to the home of the British bike triumphs and Nortons and BSAs was really cool. On the day that I arrived in England, I bought a motorbike. I think I bought two the next day after that. Simply, because they were just so cheap and there were so many cars. I had a lot of mates who were over in America who were riding around America. A lot of people that I knew riding around America, buying up 50s American cars and bringing them back here to the UK and taking them back into New Zealand. So I was very much in that community, with all those guys. So when I came, I think I did a job putting in central heating for a guy for about it must have been 2 weeks, and then I met a guy at the church, the big weekly, you can only say piss up that used to be held. This one was down in Fulham at the time on a Sunday. He was a Triumph rider. He said, "Oh, I'm a motorcycle courier and I make pretty good money. I've got a funny sort of memory, so that sort of things to become a courier." So I became a motorbike courier for Addison Lee, and straight away I loved the job. And, it just seemed to fit me like a glove. Never worked weekends. I got to meet the most incredible people via it. It would look like name dropping, but I have just so many stories, particularly when I was, you'd be working for someone like Sony Entertainment. Just so many stories of people that are household names in New Zealand, and you're there at a party with them. And yeah, was in some strange circumstances.
Hey, just going to come in here, Bruce. Just to say, in terms of what people won't know what you mean by your funny memory, what he means is that he's got an incredible memory for detail and facts, and great at retelling stories. But also another thing that so many people have come across, and randomly, I say I'm in New Zealand, and they say, "Oh, do you know Bruce?" Okay, yeah, heard this one before. Yeah, he was a taxi driver and he took us and he told us all these stories, and I remember Bruce. So that's happened more than a few times.
I must admit, Carl Burrows, wherever I go around the world, especially at home, I keep bumping into all your whananga and people who go, "Do you know Carl Burrows?" Yes, very well. So,
good. Hey, just want to jump in again while we're on this, knowing people. We got kia ora from Mary Fenwick down in the south. She says kia ora, Bruce, from Fire Jackie. Kia ora, Fire. And Suchaya. Tanya Beasley's in New Zealand. Lovely to have you listening to us. And she says, "Wonderful to see you both. Great way to start my day in Aotearoa. Thanks for sharing." I was going to say Matua Jerome. I think we can say that these days, can't we? Kia ora Matua Morena, and bonsoir from Renise in Paris. Tēnā koe, Mr. Nuku.
Kia ora, Hori.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see what through London what has happened to Jerome, and that's we got him both of us 17-year-old schoolboy.
That's right.
I just finished school with the 3 Hata boys, and to see him grow is amazing. And to think that started in many ways.
Yeah. Well, we should talk about that, eh? But tell us about what made you come to Ngati Ranana and reconnect with your Maori whānau over here.
Well, I first went to club in about 1985. It was a bit memorable because I was on my bike. I turned up in leather jacket. I had a cut off on, wrap round shades. I think I had a German helmet on or something close to it. and the building was covered in scaffolding, and the door went and I thought it was the garage. So I rode straight in, and then I looked up and saw the pauahi carved by one of my whanaunga from Inia Te Wiata. I saw that, looked down at the floor, and then Kui Rahira was there again. Rahira Windsor was there again. Get that bike out of here. I had to backpedal my bike out and sort of, I only come into the doors a little bit, but then I go, oh, no, that's not the front entrance. But that was the first time, and I went up then to, I was feeling probably a little bit muki or lost. In many ways, there was something sort of missing in my life. And then I went up and met to the penthouse in New Zealand House, and then they just said, oh, sit here. And they kept me sitting there for like 45 minutes. Esther was there and a few others. They always remember because I was walking around on the outside of the balcony, peering in with my sunglasses still on, and they were sort of going, oh, Hika, who's this fella? And then they opened the door and they just said, come sit down. And I sat down, and after about 45 minutes, they just turned to me and said, and who are you? And so I introduced myself, and that was the first time. And then I was sort of around them on and off. I never really came in as a performer, but it was just a real relief to be around those sort of aunties. You know, I've been brought up with lots and lots of aunties and uncles, but, you know, that auntie discipline that you get, you know, the way that you gauge yourself against how they work. And so it was nice to sort of, you know, having people tell you what to do after being so free from home for that time. So, yeah, I really loved being there. And so I'd been around them, and then I'd had many friends who were members of Ngati Ranana. And then around about 2003, I think it would have been about there, I started making moves, and I met Kat Munro, who was a member of club, and I said to Kat, I'll come in with you. And there were some people who had joined as well recently into club. And then I came there and sort of sat down really again to just sort of sit and watch and be around it. But as club does, they talked you into a gig within the first 2.5 months, and I was in a pew in the back of Brixton at a pub for a Kiwiana day doing a gig, nervous as, and that was the start of that. And then I knew then, because I was getting older, I'd have to take a much more sort of a sense of what I was doing. So really hit the books and talk to everyone. The good thing about Ngati Ranana, there's just so many wonderful people that come in and head it up and lead, and very generous with their matauranga, and you're just learning. And, you know, I did Māori at school when I was young, at high school, for like 3 years with John and Kahu Tapiara and Moana Davies. And then I was at Tū Tangata in Fitchett Street with Muni Taumanu. And so, you know, I was there for about a year with Muni before I went and joined the Railways. And so, you know, I had some things to ground me and remember what I was learning. But it was just a reawakening, I would say, of those things. And I loved it. I loved it. But I'd always had that strong sense of Māoridom. Like, ever since I've been to London, regardless of the absence of te reo in my mind, I've always stood as a Māori man, and not just as a New Zealander. You know, even when I was a kid, you know, I was always that Māori kid in the neighbourhood. You know,
but I think too, is like you say, you know, back then you were a child, and, you know, different expectations upon you, and as you come over here and, you know, in your journey around the world and come back as a Pakeke, as an adult, people expect you to do different things. So I think one of the things that I really admired about you is just, how you embraced that responsibility and, took it seriously and just, took to upskilling yourself. And I agree, there's so many people here that we've been able to draw on, both of us, to help us do that, because things have changed quite a lot, haven't they, from the time we left Aotearoa?
Certainly. I mean, it is huge. It is just huge. I mean, Kohanga hadn't even started when I left, those sort of options that are there now. But with that has come a sense of a sort of renaissance period of strong Māoridom, and it really has been there, and the wonderful thing, we've always had those wonderful taonga that have been left to us, and they are so popular in the world. I mean, they're so popular with people that the Māori footprint over here in Europe and on this side of the world is one of strength and mana and manaki and benevolence and love and spirituality, and even though I lack something sometimes there, it has, it's an amazing sort of thing. And when you look back in New Zealand, the Māori who are there think that everybody, sorry, and I'm generalising, but many Māori think that the world hates them, and then you get over there and you find out that the world sort of loves you. It's such a different thing, but coming in on there, Bruce, I think just want to agree with you. I think people have, the generations have changed over time. We're seeing a lot more skilled people coming in that have been brought up with te reo, and tikanga is not something that would, like us, we'd have to sort of fight for and try and obtain ourselves through our own personal learning to a bigger extent than most, at least, because that was just our time. And so I just think the quality of people coming over here it's really exciting for us over here in London and Ngati Ranana. But just moving on to that last point, because I think this is really, for me, this is why we started Manaia, was that, you just realised actually we've been putting ourselves down, or other people have been putting ourselves down back at home, and we don't often have a good view of ourselves as a result. This is because of colonisation and the racism that comes with that. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and then you come out of that environment, and then you just being who you are, and then you just realise that actually a lot of the world is missing the qualities that we have and want them and just want to share them. So that was one of the first things that sparked to my mind as well, a long time ago, 20 years ago. But so tell us, that doesn't...
Personally, I just, for me personally, my taha Māori was never a weight, though. Like for many people, the more knowledge you carry, the more weight that is there in many ways. The more that you have to uphold things, the more things you have to stand up for. For a guy like me who came with not as much tauranga as that, then that weight isn't, it's not a burden, but your expectations are nowhere near as much, are nowhere near as concentrated as they are for our young Māoris. And when the new group came into London, where we started getting adults who were brought up in Kohanga, that's where you really did see the difference, because all of a sudden they were adults now, and they were travelling over here, and they'd had it from bottom to top, their taha Māori with them always, and you really saw a difference. You would get people come over sparsely who would come over like that, and you would get those people who are very, very matatau. But then all of a sudden there was a huge influx of people who were very, very strong in their Māori knowledge and what they represent, and that was a total difference. And lucky enough that they were very generous in that way too.
Yeah, and also highly skilled too in other aspects.
Very.
And came over and took on professional jobs over here. And it's still happening. It's still exciting to see. Tell me about. So I just want to hear a little bit more about what are some of the things that people recognise in us that we take for granted that are actually, has a real appeal for people who aren't Māori.
Well, I suppose first that it is hard that these things have become so popular, because then there's a case of appropriation that comes up too. Tā moko being one of them. when we were away, me and you, and we were all performing in Paris for the 2007 Rugby World Cup, I noticed that when teams would go down into the scrums, players from Italy and France and from all over the world who played for those teams all had puhoro and things like that. That was a real eye opener, you know, and those sort of things are things. Tamoko, yeah, it's a hard one, because you're always trying to say to people, yeah, well, it's better to have your tamoko done from a Maori person, but you would have had this too when people come up and show you their pseudo tribal tattoos, and I don't want to ball them out or break them down. You know, I'm not there to do that. So you say, well, you know, that's very nice, and do you know what it means? And they go, oh no, you know, my mate from Norway, he's a tattoo artist, he did it. Yes, I can tell it's not by a Maori, because it doesn't really make sense in many places, and it doesn't really draw. But next time, if you want to, you can get in touch with people, us in particular, and we'll lead you down a path towards a tamoko artist who will be able to lead you down the correct sort of pathway to get kirituhi and those sort of things. I've never really helped. Yeah. So the other things, kapa haka, obviously. Kapa haka is so palatable. It's so easy to listen to. It's, you know, and I hate to say it again, because there's meant to be a sort of set, but wherever we go as a roropu with other things, we tend to get the top billing. When we've been in gigs, when we've been at those multicultural, multi-international performing shows that we've done so many times, like we did in Belgium, and you always become pretty much within the second day the number one billing group. So it's the crowd draw.
Yeah, so there's a bit of we're unique, we're different. We don't really often get South Pacific or Polynesian or Maori groups over the side of the world. Increasingly so we are now. So there's not a lot of exposure. But what is it about our performance that, you know, people are attracted to?
I think that a lot of people in the world are looking for something, and they're looking for something that we have. Which is a strong connection to our cultural past, a strong ability to walk quite strongly through today's modern world. So, knowing where you come from, but also being able to move in a very Western sense through this world. You know, as I said, Māori are very entrepreneurial. We have many, you know, people working in very diverse fields now. Māori people are really hitting those targets. I mean, they're hitting some bad ones, but they're hitting a lot of very good ones, and there's more to come. And you know that, and I know that. There's more to come from them. And people can see that sort of sense of pride, but that sense of settlement, like that sort of toe feeling we have when we walk with that. I mean, you see our girls when they're performing and when they're walking through crowds, just how, when they're not laughing and joking all over the place, but the sense that they hold themselves, the way that they hold themselves, you can, it's, you know, you can feel it, you can see it, and people respond to it. And same as when I enter a stage and I've got 6 guys with me and they're powerful looking, you know, look at, you know, I'm 3 years away from 60, so it's harder to get there, but I still have to come out and give that sort of kaha, that sort of displays that. And then what I love about it is what they would see as a very macho sort of thing, that all of a sudden our boys and our wahine will break out into these beautiful melodic waiata, you know, kapa haka, even the strength of more tiatia, even though people don't know what it is, they can see that expression on them. And so it's a real draw for people who haven't had that cultural base. I mean, the people all around Eastern Europe, they're very strong to their countries. They're very strong to their cultural base. But as you move further west and through Europe, then people are looking for things, you know, in those countries right through, and we seem to have the answer for them.
Yeah, I agree, Bruce, and I think it's mainly the Western world as well. I think places like Poland seem to be a lot more connected to who they are, but
they certainly are.
Yeah, but people in the US, you know, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK and Western Europe, I think I think the focus has been so much on individualism and science, and so it's moving away from the sense of connectedness, the community, and the spirituality. That, I mean, these are things that are quite difficult to express. You know, you see how people walk, but how do you explain what it is you're feeling as a result of them walking? You know, really difficult to understand or articulate. But you know, I agree, it's all in there somewhere, and it's just a matter of packaging it. Hey, I just want to move on to how this sort of ended up being sort of a work for you, you know, and I know you've been doing this for a few years now, a long time, and, you know, really successfully. So just really wonder how did this sort of transition from this idea of, well, I suppose for me at least, it was about seeing the value, as we discussed, and then sort of trying to share it. And tell us a bit about that. How did it all work for you?
Well, I've been obviously I've been doing performances with Manaya, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought that you guys were quite benevolent to have me on. But it must have been something about height and size mainly, because but it was a slow sort of thing. But I think how it sort of happened moving out on my own was we the boys, you know, I ran these houses that had many Maori living in it. At one point, at this one, there was about 12 or 14 living in this house, and they'd come back from a gig, and I said to them, well, they look a bit deflated, and I said, what's wrong with you? And they said, oh, we just did this Haka workshop, and, you know, there was a Pākehā fella leading it, and they felt a bit uneasy about it. And I said, oh, you know, okay. And then a couple of months later, they come in with the same look, and I said, what's up with you guys? And they said again, oh, just we did this same group did a Haka workshop. So I said, you know what, I'm going on the next one. And then on the next one, because they were dressed in all blacks gear and stuff like that. So the next one, I went with one of our guys, and we took it, and we said, come in kakahu, full traditional Maori kakahu, and said, okay, this is how the workshop's been done. That guy over there, he's not running it anymore. You know, we've got guys with far more knowledge and know how to connect. And if anyone's going to connect our cultural identity with anybody, it's going to be us. And so this fella here, he's going to do it, which he did. He was really very matato, Jordan, at the time. And then and that's sort of how it happened. And then those guys were running them for a while, but then they slowly went off and went home. And all of a sudden, there I was left out in the front. And I'd only ever done it once, and that was when I was with you, I think, and your voice went a bit croaky. And I had to jump in Dusseldorf, of all places.
That's right. Hey, I'm just going to come in here because it was like a pivotal moment for me. I remember this. We were in front of 400 people on stage, running out onto stage and then doing Haka. And when you do Haka, excited, and when you're overexcited when you do Haka, there is a possibility you can lose your voice. And luckily, there was not, and I lost my voice in front of 400 people. I was about to do a presentation. Luckily, I had Bruce there because you were able to step forward and take the reins. It was so embarrassing, but anyway, just had to get over it. But yeah, thank you for that.
No, sorry, bro. It was a good gig though, and that was a good gig for the largest central heating firm in the UK, I believe. But yeah, but it does. But lucky enough now, you know, my voice is Haka fit. I can shout all day. I've done 7 workshops in a day an hour each, and get through it. But you're not too good the next day. But and
so tell us about, just give us a general overview of what you do and how you pitch to clients and that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, I'm a bit brazen in how I do pitch it to them, because I make it more than obvious sometimes. I'll turn up at Twickenham like full, you know, moko stenciled on and feathers in my hair. So it's hardly very ambiguous where I'm from. And so you're just hoping to start those conversations. The good thing about rugby, so there is a connection, you know. We spend our time telling people that Haka has very little to do with rugby. And that is one of the main things that we get across. But it is also there where the corporate world is. Rugby is far more corporate than football. And so when you're at these games, they have a far more corporate leaders, corporate owners, managerial percentage. And so at games, you know, that's where the conversation strikes up. Although it is sometimes hard to bear, because I sometimes wonder whether I'm talking to people And I thought I like talking to people, whether I'm talking to them because I like them or whether I'm trying to get business. But, you know, the product is very good. We've never had a bad one over hundreds and hundreds of Haka workshops. And you strike up a conversation and that. But there's also the mana that I get, sorry if that's the way I put it, but from being with Ngati Ranana, the London Maori club, because you get to work on a guy like me, because of my age maybe, gets to run gigs on such high profile things like All Blacks rugby games and museum openings around Europe and those sort of things. You know, I even got to run a ropu to open the New Zealand Embassy in Dublin last year, I think. And, you know, that would never happen to the Bruce who first arrived here. So, but so those sort of things.
Just the All Blacks, you know, I used to always annoy me about the All Blacks, and, you know, people think Haka is about the All Blacks, but I think two things have happened. One, I've got over it, and I think we have a lot to thank. We have to thank the All Blacks for, you know, bringing the exposure of our culture to the world. And the second thing is, I think the All Blacks have changed up their game as well. You know, there's a lot more understanding of the depth of what Haka means. And
there is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they certainly, like Inia Maxwell and certainly Derek Lardelli and that lead those guys through. And, of course, Ngati Toa with their guidance. And it was good. But, you know, it was good. I actually felt better when Ngati Toa, Rangatira were okay with it all. I remember writing a letter to them and offering a koha, actually, but they just said, no, you whakapapa straight into Ngati Toa through your Puhi Wahine side, and everything's cool. And all we want to do is send us back things of stuff that you've been doing. And that was a real ease. And so when you do stand up on those stages, you are very aware that you're not only representing yourself or your company, that's the last thing. You know, you're representing a huge amount of people at home and their traditions. And, you know, I'm always checking with my uncles and aunties on my Ngati Toa Rangatira side. Is everything okay? And things are good, and showing them what's going on. I suppose the first person I saw was Wetini Mitai, Te Matirai Ioru, who were performing at Waterloo Bridge. I think you were there at that time, and he come out and he had such a humour to him. So he was talking about our culture, but he did it with such humour and real vigour and real entertainment value. And I thought, wow, you know, you can have a good time with your culture and entertain people. And I suppose that's the way I tend to go more. But you know, I was talking to him later. We went to dinner later because he knew family members of mine very well, and it was a real good talk. And then just being here in London, you get to, you know, Amster Reedy, who was the kaumātua for the New Zealand Olympic team, and I ran the pōwhiri for that at Hinimuhi. And, you know, I got to spend a lot of time with Amster, and you know, they had a lot of questions and they answered them really well, which is just, you know, carry on and do what you do, and you won't please everybody. That's the one thing that you had to remember. And our te ao Māori is that you cannot please everybody. There's always, and trying it is just impossible.
So what is, I mean, the reality is what we were doing, what we've been doing for a long time now, about 15 years, was kind of, was breaking, you know. It's nobody else was doing it. I mean, I think people might have taught Haka at Rotorua prior to this, but for us to go to the extent that we've done is sort of groundbreaking in a way. You know, and just in terms of something different and innovative, in terms of rather than just performing. But you know, not everybody's is happy with it, as you've said. And so, what's some of the criticism that you've received, if you don't mind me asking?
I've never really had it. I must admit. I'm pretty safe. I've had an agent who was dealing with us. Some people went on there and attacked an agent's site. But, you know, I just posted up my whakapapa and a letter and some other introductions, and it pretty much stopped almost in a couple of hours. I know that it could happen. But, you know, when I went home last time, I always talk about the people that I represent and my elders and all of that. But to tell you the truth, the last time I went home, and with the passing of my mother last year, there's pretty much no one above us now. I have a few aunties and uncles who aren't out there so much, but I've never had it, Carl. You know,
Yeah. No, I agree. I think people want you to be careful. You know, that want you to be and treat what we're doing with respect and be safe. And I think as long as they understand that's what's happening, people always tend to be supportive. You know, they're not openly raving about it because it is new and it is out there. But they always tend to be supportive of what we're doing. So
we always make sure that the main thing is the Manaki, the guys who are with me, you know, they're well looked after. I mean, we do get to take young Maori from New Zealand to the most incredible places, you know. I mean, look what you did for Glastonbury, taking those guys to Glastonbury performing there. I mean, that crew was over the moon. I mean, it was a life-changing thing for them to go to this festival. But not only that, just wow, you know, I sent a team to the Bahamas once. You know, the other nice things, you know, just even going to Turkey, it's what you get to do for your people too.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's a business is one thing, but the fact that you're able to take these young people out and really let them enjoy it, and particularly ones who weren't so strong in their taha Māori, and particularly to have those guys there and really get them to fall in love with their Māoridom again. That's a real thing, not only through club but through our own businesses, and I really enjoy it. And the actual fact is, they are all just wonderful ambassadors to their culture. You know, the guys I have, they can be clowny and they can be everything else, but when they're on stage, they stand so well and they give it their all. You know, we can't all be a Matatini championship group. We can't all be. It's hard to keep that quality. And sometimes your groups are really, really good, but with the nature of our people going and coming and coming and going and coming and going, you know, sometimes it is. But no matter what, those core values of Manaki and looking after and representation are still there. And you always have that with you no matter where you go. Yeah. And we're lucky.
Yeah, I agree, Bruce. And I think Manaki Tanga is probably the most important thing that we have, you know, in terms of, and it's humbling to provide, you know, these opportunities, but also I think
it is
one of the not the difficulties, but one of the, I suppose, in terms of upholding that value, it's our job to make sure we communicate to our clients. We need our young people to be looked after. Right? We need our people to be looked after.
Well, the hard thing is, I suppose the one thing is to make sure that your ego isn't the thing that when you're telling a CEO or a client or a big client, you know, they're huge, these blue chip companies, no, we can't do that. You know, no, we can't do that, you know, and they're sort of, you know, aren't you like just a hired sort of tiki bar group? You go, no, and that's not going to go, you know, and you have to think, well, is it me? Am I just annoyed at that customer and am I pushing back at him? But you know, you learn to keep yourself in check and go, no, that's not possible. That's not going on. In particular, when you've been brought in to do a porphyry process for a New Zealander or a Maori in particular, going into a sports team that's been introduced into a sports team over here, and they want you to go do that. Trying to tell them, and TV producers and these people, no, that's not going to happen. And standing by that. Do you walk away annoyed at them, or do you just walk away and say, no, you did the right thing, you can't do it? I've been with your crew and I've seen them do it, and it was good. It was the right call. You know, because those things can get you in trouble with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
They can get you in trouble with yourself, you know. Yeah. There's been a couple of times, I suppose, for the first time ever, I did a gig just before Christmas Eve last year. Was probably the first time I thought, yeah, I should have walked off that stage like 30 minutes ago, because it was more of a party atmosphere that just sort of got carried away. And then, you know, next time I'll call it quicker. It never happened before, but next time I won't let it happen.
And some of these things are just experience. But, I agree that, well, you've got to know yourself. You've got to know where you're from, and the tikanga that you've been taught. And I think, tikanga is obviously flexible because, you know, we're applying it to new situations. But I think, you know, when the line is crossed, it's just a matter of communicating that clearly to your client. Well, every time they understand, you know, if you're able to say, actually, we don't do it this way because of this, what are you wanting to achieve? And then they tell you, and you can say, well, we can do that, but we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
You know, and then we're safe, my people are safe, and you're going to be safe, and everything's going to be okay. And then they appreciate that, and that just brings more value and more depth to what we're doing. And
it does, yeah. It is cool, because if you get repeat work in those things, then you really do get to shape things. And a really, really big firm, one of the largest food producing firms in the world that I was dealing with, they came with a whole team who were trying to make the company seem more sustainable and more modern in today's way of thinking. And I asked them, is this just lip service? You know, is this a tokenism? And then the CEO came in and talked with me and says, no, we really want to head in this direction, Bruce. And that's really heartening, you know, to have that, to have these corporations, because money is the thing that they are there to do. They are there to make money. But they've taken on more of a monarchy sort of value and a monarchy sense to look after the people who work for them. And I don't know if it's real, and I can't tell, but they certainly give you a good opinion that that's what they're doing. And my own partner, Taser, you know, she said that the company she works for and certain companies, they're heading towards that, looking after their workers more, you know, well-being. There was no occupational therapy when I was young on the railways, you know, it was either at work or not. But, you know, these companies, it's more than occupational therapy, and they use us to sort of sometimes heal that non-unification that they have within themselves, and they bring us in to get them more unified. It may not take them all the way there, but it certainly kicks them in that direction.
So it opens up it sparks the idea, the thought that, hey, we can be united around this. And I think I tell the story quite often. It's, you know, when we did the way we got started is we did a performance for IBM, and it was just a performance. And then the CEO comes up to us and said, hey, we love watching you perform, but we want to feel what you feel. You know, and that's this idea of being united and solid as a team, willing to express ourselves and commit to our passion and our purpose, and that's what companies want as well. So, and you're right, we're not there to, you know, take them the whole way, but we're there to open them up to these ideas. You know. Yeah,
it's certainly a questionable thing, but it's nice to know that you're having cause and effect in some ways, and you know, and we go in there with the best intentions. In many ways, it's a strange thing because, you know, we're more than a hotel group just coming out and entertaining guys. You know, you're there to you know yourself that there are people after the performances have come up and cried, and you know, in particular, I mean, I've tongued on stage because something has hit me in particular. Last year with the loss of our close mate Joy, you know, that hit me on stage a few times, I've got to admit, and just that power, but it comes out in your performance, and people feel that, you know. After the massacre down in Christchurch, my rounding up cordial, which wasn't planned or anything, and I just said, you know, we talked about that Haka at the moment has been used to make us more cohesive, to say to those people who were attacked, who were survived and who are still there, that, you know, we are Maori and we're there, and we're there to stand next to you. And people really responded to that. Yet I didn't do it to win a crowd. You just do it because that's how you felt. You were carrying that sort of mamai through that performance because it had happened, you know, and you're up there on stage, but it just comes out. And I really like what we get to do in that sense, and really change the view. And regardless of us, you know, there's thousands and thousands and maybe even hundreds of thousand people that have seen us perform in our different groups. You know, they get touched, and it leaves them with nothing but a good impression of our people.
Another thought came to my mind when we did this 3-hour workshop with a company, and then at the end of it, we asked them, you know, for feedback. And I'm sort of expecting some of the cliches you get with Haka, that people see Haka and they say, you know, it's all about aggression and masculinity and feeling good and powerful. But the feedback was really humbling, you know, and when you sort of hear that, you just think, oh, it feels like we've done something right.
Yeah. So it's the learning curve. The learning curve isn't doing the performances it's quite strange how adept you do get at it, and but you go and when you're doing these things, and even though it's not mine, you have a real proprietary nature about how you feel about the performance that you're going to do and what it is that you're taking there. Even though you're representing many others, you want to give it your best. You want to do your best. I mean, it's not just just get through there. It really is most of the time, nearly all of the time. It's you're trying to eat your best. You want to connect and you want to leave people feeling better, because that's what you want, and you want to leave people feeling better.
Just don't go too hard and lose your voice.
I'm lucky. Yeah.
Hey, just sort of touch on. I think what you're saying is lovely. I really appreciate it, Bruce. It's nice to be able to get to this level of depth in this corridor. And we touched on some of the some of the, I suppose, things that we struggle with in terms of making sure that we do what to meet the expectations of ourselves and our people back home. But there are people now who are doing similar things to us, in terms of teaching Haka and sharing Māori culture, who aren't, well, I'm not even sure if being not Māori is the issue. But anyway, they don't know what they're doing, Here they are teaching Māori culture, and just what are your thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, I don't like that when they're out there running businesses, of course. But then all the school kids that we've taught Kapa Haka, when they're performing those songs, so the businesses, let's get those ones first. No, I don't like anyone apart from Māori really doing tā moko. It's just the way it is. We whakapapa into that knowledge, and that should be us who sort of take that knowledge out there and to do it. There are many people though who love it, and they really do love, and they go into the depths of it and they learn from it. But they are our gifts, and we have a depth of feelings for it that takes us to another place with it. So those sort of things. It's a hard job when we get those tā moko artists come over from New Zealand who go and have talks. They quite often think that they're going to change those people, and then come back very deflated, knowing that they can't. They just can't. The Haka workshops, though, we can. We know that we can win those. That sort of thing. We can go collectively. Certainly, Kane, who's working over in Denmark and that sort of part, is quite on the case in that sort of way. We're working with teams in Germany doing it and that. But that's the other thing. The difference between, I've had customers who've had those guys and then they come to our guys and they just, they just say the difference is huge. Yeah. And so that's the important of keeping that sort of strength and that sort of knowledge. But it's a big fight. A lot of times when people like in France did that Haka at that law firm when they were demonstrating, they didn't do that to mock us, though. I'm quite sure they did that. They do that because they love us. They love our culture. They love the Haka. They see it. They don't know, because forever they've been living in the Western construct of traditions, which is, just use a tradition wherever you want. If people are going to put it out there, then we're going to grab it and take it. And it's nice when we're able to stand up there and say to people, within the realms of what we've taught you and those things, that is for us. You can talk about it with your family. I'm fine like that, but I don't expect to see you with business cards flying out there later. So yeah, it's not easy, because here we are teaching, but I think for me, I only want to teach people as a way for them to understand who they are. These parts of themselves that they've hidden because of the way their culture is. We're here to bring that part of them alive. But I don't expect them to go out performing everywhere, as a group or starting to teach. That's not what it's about. And they just don't have. If they want to, I think, if they really want to know Haka, I say to them, go to New Zealand. Yeah. I try to direct people to videos of certain things. The hardest group, the main appropriation is from non-Māori New Zealanders themselves, I suppose. And it's not sort of their fault that they see it as their gift too. I understand it. I see it. It's not like, it's not like they haven't been led down a path that says this is yours by way of our national rugby team. So, but things have changed. Things have changed now, and our haka performed by the All Blacks is in another stratosphere from what was performed from the All Blacks up until 1985, I'd guess. And so it is with our young New Zealanders, or with our New Zealand people, trying to say, yeah, that's not right, buddy, and no, you can't do that, and that's just the way. I'd be lying if I haven't said that I've done a haka. I've been in a pub to say goodbye, to welcome people. We've done waiata and haka to say goodbye to someone who's flying out, who's been a big part of our community. But still, that's within the parameters of our of as if we were at home in a hall, sitting at home, at a wedding, or any of those other things where Maori are prevalent and would knock out those things. But in general, getting that word out to our New Zealand community. But that'll get stronger soon, because there's a bit of a wave beginning to start now over the Circle Line pub crawl haka, and rightly so. And it was going to happen, and more than likely, I can see that being given away in the not too distant future.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I hope so. Hey, Bruce, I suppose just what can we do is my question. What can we do, or what do you do really, is a way to ensure the knowledge that we share is respected, and is left in good shape for future generations?
By ourselves, or for the people we teach?
I suppose we're the ones. I mean, we're the guardians of it in the sense that we share it, and that there's yeah. So for us, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we do have a sort of custodial sense about those things that we do. So keeping it moving forward with a sort of quality that people would like. Again, due to the transient nature of the performers that are with us, we can have someone who's performed in pretty big groups back at home, and they can slide in straight in the door and be performing with us. But we also have, that helps. It certainly helps with the quality of the people that actually come here to London to be around with us, and in regards to it. But I suppose still trying to protect that sort of identity of it in many ways.
I think Bruce, if I can just come in here, that there's something that Kane always says as well, is that there's always going to be people who want to share haka and they don't even know what they're doing and they don't know anything about it, and they might be German or Dutch or whatever. But I think it's our responsibility to do it in a way which respects the knowledge, i.e. do it in a really a positive way which maintains the integrity and quality of the knowledge, so that people could see. I suppose if you really want to learn haka, there's Maori people you can go to learn haka, and they do it really well. I think that's the obligation. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I really had to make sure that I was able to answer most questions about haka when people would ask about why. I certainly had the knowledge up tremendously about that, and then it depends on the amount of time that you've got to get it out there. The average gig being 45 minutes. The first 25 minutes, the audience is sitting there, and that's my time. I have to get all of those things out. Talk about where it come from, where it happened, how we got to that point, how we use it today, how we're trying to drive our people forward today in the new modern world, while still trying to keep a large base of traditions at our feet with us, and move in today's world. And you get to talk about how we are doing that, and you can see that on a day-to-day basis. So really, it's the talk you tend to give, and certainly the wrapping up of how you're trying to connect with people. So really, it's the quality of the connection you make with people, the message that you're trying to give. As long as the quality of that message is at that standard, then that's the best you can do. That's the best you can do. But that's really down to interpretation of the people who are watching, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, especially from home, that's really down to interpretation.
Yeah.
But as long as I sort of have iwi backing, and that will always be there, that makes it a lot easier. And in many ways, where I'm an entertainer as well, so when you watch old Howard Morrison videos where that, they're falling around all the way through E Te Hoko Whitu, and that even at the point where they get to Ngati Mu, where they're singing, they're still having a bit of a laugh and a joke, and you sort of think, okay, no one would do that now. So that's
all right. Hey, just a few more people have said hello, and I just want to acknowledge my cousin over in Belgium, saying hi from the Belgian family. My auntie Brenda Tote in Australia. Nods, nods.
Oh, kia ora, Nods.
Kia ora, morena, te whānau, ka rawe te kite me te rongo korori o korua. Kia ora from Linda Harper up north. Sol Henare, tēnā koe, bro. Saying
Kia ora, brother. Mata.
And Mr. Katipa, Balance, Ngā Mihirangi again. Michelle Rigby, awesome kōrero. Ka pai. Rob Hitaraka, geez, that's been a long time. And Mr. Claassen down in Croydon, Mr. Ngati Puro. Hey, we're going to finish up, but I just want to ask one more question. There's a few. Well, just quickly, tell us about your most favourite gig.
My most favourite one? I had one where I had, for a really large jewellery company, a huge jewellery company, we were the entertainment group for the night, and on that group I had Ortene Lewis, Taranga. I had just a strong group, and Joy. It was just such a strong performing group that I think that would be my favourite. Think of the places. 2007 with Manaia and Haka Works at the Rugby World Cup was just the most memorable time, and the most amazing time, and the most amazing 2 weeks. And even though the All Blacks were now out of the World Cup, the way that we would stand there, the way that we represented, the everything about that was just a wonderful trip. And I think that, being there, of course, with Katea, yourself, and the kids, but just every day you got to go down there. I think I slid myself into that gig, just the guys who were with there, and it was early days for you guys too. Yeah. Not theirs, but the way he's handled it, everything that went on, it was just a wonderful tour. And I think that one with Manaia, the 2007 Rugby World Cup, was certainly my favourite.
Awesome. Hey, Bruce, even though we've got a few years left in us, we're hoping, we were both hoping that some young Māori will come through and be interested in doing similar things to what we're doing, and either with us or by themselves. What sort of advice would you give to someone in that situation that wanted to set up sharing Māori cultural knowledge with the world?
I certainly think it's a big world, and there's a lot out there. There's a lot of work out there in that regards. Love what you do. It helps, love what you do. Be a people person, get those upskill and really know how to. But you've just got to be strong. You just got to be strong. It's easy to say yes. Yes is real easy, but it's learning how to say no to those things, those things. And that's what it is. Be strong. Just say no. Of course, for people that's it. It's different for each person where they gauge that sort of mark, but you've got to always think about who you represent and your iwi at home and what they would think. And generally, if you do it right, they can be proud of you, and you can be proud of the work that you do. But really, like any business, you've just got to be strong and have that. Hindsight's not much good, so foresight has to be your friend. You have to make decisions; they have to be the correct ones, and they have to be. We've all been caught out. It's easy. Any business does, in any entertainment business. That'd be cool. But you learn from that one, and you pretty much never do that again. So, and that would be it.
Awesome.
But yeah,
right. I think too, not in those, as well as in those moments, it's a long game, isn't it? And as we're discovering right now, we have some really amazing years and some really rubbish years, and 2020 is certainly one of the interesting ones. There's not a lot going on in terms of the events and conference industry around the world. So, but it's a matter of having the ability to stick it out when it's difficult and enjoying it when it's going really well.
Yeah, well, look at Ngati Ranana. They're still running practice every week in and out, and whether people think it helps or it doesn't help, what it does show is that they're still there. There's still a whānau. No matter what, there's still a Maori community. They still love being together. That manaaki is still there, and in spite of our losses, and in spite of the things we have to punch at, we're always going to remain true to that thought as Maori people here, that we will always be cohesive. We're always there. As a long-termer here, you'll always be there for other people and for our young Maori, and I think that's the important message is to just know that, we're keeping going. We're going and we're keeping going and keeping going. It's hard too, because we have to watch those fights, those problems that are going on in New Zealand, and we don't have them here, we don't have them here. So how to tautoko that back at home, how to sort of get a sense of the problem too, that's hard. I mean, the whole methamphetamine use at home and how it's decimating many of our communities, I don't see it. So it's real hard, but I know it's becoming a normality in many places, and you want to fight that. So when people come over, our young people come over, it's trying to say, there are much better ways to get that natural well-being and that better feeling, and how to stay that strong, and what it is that you have to lose. And for many of them, they cannot see it there, but they can see it here.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that I like about here.
So just one more chance to really mihi to people. I'm going to leave it to you to say, just to encourage some more people to come over. Yeah.
I mean, it's always there. It's a good life, and wow, you just think, my last gig before lockdown was in Florida, in Orlando. I'd been there for the last 4 years, off to Austin, Texas. Before that, the day before that, I'd done a gig in Marlborough House, one of the palaces, for the Commonwealth Secretariat. You just find yourselves on on the most amazing places. That's just amazing. And for me, it's even head spinning sometimes, the companies we get to deal with. I mean, I don't know many Māori get to deal with the companies we get to deal with on a week to week basis. It's they are large and blue chip, but no matter what, we still do those smaller gigs. We're sort of very benevolent on, depends what we can do. Still do a lot of community stuff, still do a lot of charitable work, and keep those things going. But for our young people, you come over, we can take you on that ride, sort of thing. It's you come over with those talents. I hope you got a lot more talent than I ever came over with.
I know where you're coming from there, bro. Talking about me, of course. Hey, just a couple more people saying hi, and then I'll let you finish off with a waiata. So we've got Petra. You're doing a really good job on passing knowledge and educating us. Thank you, Carl and Bruce. Ngamahi.
Kia ora, Petra.
Ulese, kia ora, Kazi, Bruce. This talk is awesome. Thank you both. And we've got Kyle Bates coming in again. Great to hear your thoughts and impressions on Māori culture. Privilege we're learning it. We're privileged in learning it. Mihi from Luke. Thank you, Mihi. Luke. Thank you both. He says, forever grateful for all the opportunities. Renee K. Thank you for your kōrero and Tanya.
He's such a nice boy.
No, certainly is. Kei a koe, bro. Waiho mai te waheta kia mutapai runga te kaupapa. Mihi te kia a koe mo tō kōrero, mo tō mātauranga, e tukuna mai kia mātau i tēnei wā. Tēnā koe. Kia ora.
He waita, yeah. A he puru. Just trying to remember this. A he puru tai tama e, he puru tai tama hoki. He puri tai tama, he puri tuki tuki, he puri tai tama e. Ka haere tāua e, ki runga o taki hoki. Ki reira tāua whakarite rite ai, whakaoti oti ai e. Whakaoti oti ai e. Kia ora.
Ka pai. Ngā mihi, Bruce. Kia ora.
Ngā mihi, kia ora.